Hello guys, welcome back to Dharma Geosphere. Today I'll be interacting with you on another very important topic in geomorphology related to channel morphology along with slope development and the planar erosion surfaces, denudation chronology. All these 4-5 chapters are very important in geomorphology. They're a little technical in nature, and all the content related to these topics is not available in any one particular book or any other source. So we need to work a little hard in bringing them all the content from various sources together and put it together, and then I have brought it to you. So starting with the way a river is formed or a stream is formed, it's because the main sources are the rainfall. It could be also due to snow glaciation, and when both are not present, even underground water plays an important source for the rainfall. Normally the river flow starts from an elevation, and then it moves down the slopes, and while moving down the stream flow, if it flows along one particular path, that is called as a channel. And normally a river has a main channel, and it forms by the rainfall from gathered from various places in the mountains. It all comes together and forms a stream flow. Generally a stream flow has a main channel, and the main channel gets attached with many tributaries, and when there is a rise or a ridge, the ridge separates two neighboring river systems, and they flow separately again in a particular channel or the space. So basically a river is also a channel. It is a very general term given to a channel with water in it. So they are used interchangeably. They can be a river morphology, they could be also a channel morphology. Both are more or less the same. So while the river moves down from the elevation from the mountains up to the oceans, it forms various morphologies, that is the channel morphologies. It could be braided, or it could be meandering. The basic difference between braided is when there are more than one channels, there are multiple channels, and also the width of the channel is very wide, whereas for meandering the channel width is less and it's a single channel. So like this we will try to understand the various morphologies the channel develops as it moves along right up from the mountains to the oceans. So we'll study this in different contents. I'll share with you that, and then what is more important here is that you should give examples for each of the channel morphological types, and also in the end I will tell you about one case study also. So they say, for example, you have braided channel, a braided channel or a braided river. One of the most classic example of that is our own Brahmaputra river. And so when it comes to meandering, you have the Ganges and all the Ganges system rivers which tremendously meander. So one of the most interesting part of the stream morphology is its Indian context. Because of its variability of rainfall and the vagaries of the monsoon, the river systems also developed a variety of forms, and thereby a variety of channels, and its channel morphology as far as India is concerned, it is one of the best in the world. So I have divided the whole topic into different contents. First we will understand what is the channel and the morphology. Then we will understand the morphological aspects of a particular channel, and then we will go on to, we will also see how the geometry of channel is, and then we will understand how the river moves right up from the elevation down down up to the slopes and to the oceans. And then we'll see what is the old classification. In fact, one of some students had come to me and asked that some lady was presenting that there are 5 types of channels. Is that correct or not? See, I can't comment on that, but whatever classification you are giving in your answer, you should quote or give the name of the person who has done that classification. Then only it has relevance, and then you can pick up those relevant marks. And also, I will give you the latest classification on channel morphologies, and then we'll understand what are the approaches for studying the channel morphologies, and we will also understand the importance and the problems related to the channel morphology, and we will also understand what are the new techniques in understanding the channel morphology. Then we will do one case study of the Brahmaputra and how the channel morphologies have been studied in a recent paper, and we will of course then conclude. So now I'll share with you some important slides, so please pay attention, and then try to grasp it here and now itself, so that you will be able to remember the main points when you actually take up the main exam, and then you do a quick revision before that. So this is the framework of this topic which I am going to interact with you. We will see what introduction to the river and channel system, then the morphology of it, the geometry of it, and then the changes in morphology from mountain to ocean, and what are the factors that influence these changes. Then just a look at the old classification, and then focus on the new classification. Then we also look at the approaches to study on river morphology, then the recent tools in studies, and then the importance and the problems of channel morphology, and finally the highlight of the Brahmaputra case study. So this is the source of stream water. It begins at higher elevations. Water can come from rainfall, glacial melting underground, especially when it is not fed by rainfall. And then the river water flowing down the slopes comes together to form a stream flow. So a river is a general term given to the channel. Otherwise, channel is the path the water flow follows in a stream flow. You can see the channel here, and these are the side banks of the channel. And then each river consists of a main channel that is fed by tributaries, and then it is separated by the adjacent river system by a divide, could be a ridge or a continental divide, etc. And then the channel morphology. Basically, there are 4 terms which you should understand. One is the cross section, the other is the profile, and the other is the plan form and the bed form. The cross section includes the width and the depth of the flood channel. As you can see, this is the width and this is the depth. And then the profile, whether the longitudinal or cross sectional, you can see that it forms during the young, maturity and old ages. During the end, braiding happens, and during maturity, meanderings take place, and during old, it becomes a straight channel. Then thalweg, the thalweg is what is shown here. It's very simple. It's the curvature where the eroding point and the speed is much higher. Then plan form describes channels sinuosity and basically the shape of the river meandering, but basically it reflects the quasi-equilibrium form of a channel in response to the concentration and dissipation of energy and the associated with the transfer and storage of the sediments. The bed form develops at the interface of fluid and a movable bed, the result of bed material being moved by the fluid flow. Example includes like ripples, you see dunes like things. You can see here on the bed of a river. Bed forms are often preserved in the rock record as a result of being present mostly in the depositional setting. Then the river equilibrium, sometimes the river reaches the equilibrium because And the slope depends not only on the valley slope but also the extent to which the channel meanders back to and forth across the valley. And while moving to and forth, it tries to reach a kind of an equilibrium. Roughness is created by meanders which cause the flow to spiral, slowing it down and reducing its energy as is shown in the diagram. The channel evolution is sudden large-scale changes in a watershed, or it could also be in a river basin, which can result in dramatic disequilibrium which persists for tens to hundreds of years before actually equilibrium is restored. So from disequilibrium to equilibrium, the evolution of this channel is generally a 5 to 6 stage process, and it takes a very long time for a river to actually reach the equilibrium. This is channel geometry. It has Thalweg. I said it's the line drawn to join the lowest points along the entire line. You can see the lowest point drawn here. And then the channel gradient is a very important parameter in geomorphic characterization of river systems. It could be a steep gradient or it could be a gentle gradient, but depending on the gradient, the various types of channel morphologies are formed. Then the channel sinuosity is the measure of deviation of a channel between 2 points from the shortest possible path. It's calculated as a ratio between the stream channel and the straight line distance. So the length of the stream channel by length of the straight line distance is equal to sinuosity. This is important. Sinuosity index is used in classifying the channel morphologies in the recent classification. And then now we see the flow of path or the channel from the mountains down to the oceans. The two most important variables are friction and slope. Slope implies gravitational potential, and from this gravitational potential that the river derives all the energy, and then as the river flows along the friction along the channel walls, it consumes all this energy. So if a river is in equilibrium, erosion and deposition, or in other words, gravitational energy gain and energy loss by friction are balanced. So there is not any one of why the energy is increasing, or there is no gain or loss when it is in equilibrium. Thus the river will flow along with fairly uniform speed, and then of course if friction along a straight channel is not enough, then the down valley flow path will increase, that is the channel path will increase, so that more friction work can be performed and all the gravitational energy can thus be used up. So the river systems change in character as we go from the headwaters, that is the higher elevations, to the ocean because of the influences of variety of factors such as slope gradient, as we have seen, the sediment load, and then the bank stability, flow velocity, discharge and discharge fluctuations, sediment supply, tectonic movements, climate, grain size distribution in the transported material, etc. A stream can have various channel patterns based on the above parameters such as straight channels, braided channels, and meandering channels, anatomizing and wandering channels in high gradients. Channel can also develop in high gradients such as ripple pools, rapids, steep pools, and cascades. So these are the 5 stages which I have said, that moving from the high elevation mountains to these low slopes near the oceans. You have the stage 1 which is stable, stage 2 is incision where you find gorges and valleys being cut, then there is widening where this is the lateral erosion occurs, and then the stage 4 is stabilizing, and stage 5 is total equilibrium, which is totally stable. So these are the 3 types of channels, as I've already said. It starts from the meandering channel, then it goes braided where it becomes widened. There are many channels here, and finally it forms the straight channel. So classification of channel morphologies, this is by far the important or the core aspect of the channel morphologies. The original classification of river channel morphologies patterns was given by Andreevy and Yaroslavtsev in 1958, who they designed mainly 3 essential types of channel morphologies in low gradient systems and high gradient systems. In the low gradient system, they have straight, meandering and braided, as we have already discussed. It also has wandering and anatomosed, which are the variants of these three. So this is braided, as I've already said, and these are braided channels. This is meandering. This is the Yukon River, which is an important example as far as India is concerned. You can give Ganga. This is wandering. It is because it has a class between meandering and braiding, which has a combined characteristic of both braided and as well as meandering. And this is anastomosed rivers. Here the pattern is interconnected semi-permanent channels. It has more of vegetated islands and stable banks given by Smith. And then you also have another important example here, that is that of Brahmaputra river, which shows this anastomosing channels, or it is also called as anabranching. Similarly, you find different types of morphologies in the high gradient channels of rivers and streams. They are divided into refill pools, rapid and step pools, and also cascade unit morphology. The refill pool sequence channels are composed of migrating pools and transverse bars called as riffles, and occur on gradients less than 1 to 2%. So this is the refill and pool. And then rapids, these should not be confused with the plain bed. They lack distinct pools, and they are generally formed where there is a hard rock and a solid rock. The hard rock becomes resistant, and when the water is falling, it doesn't cut through the hard rock, whereas it gets cuts the soft rock, and this is how a rapid is formed. Then the step pools are composed of channel spanning pools with alternating boulders and cobble steps that cause subcritical flow in the pool and the subcritical flow over the steps. You can see here the steps. And then the cascade units are like steeper gradients, one after the other, where the channel here is dominated by boulders and cobbles, and channel spanning pools of course are not seen in cascades. Pocket pools are common in all the 4 channel types. Large woody debris may strongly influence the channel types. Then coming to the recent classification, this is how you should, one which you should remember, is given by Gurnall in 2014. This classification is important, and it takes into account the aspects of whether the channel is confined or it is unconfined. You can see in the picture, this is confined, that is the valley slopes are directly in contact with the channels, and the floodplain present is limited to some isolated pockets. Generally, the floodplain is not visible to a naked eye or seen in the field, but you can of course see it through the satellite imagery. Then they have an unconfined channels. Here less than 10% of the bank length is in contact with hill slopes or ancient terraces, but the valley floors are not in contact. You can see it's absolutely there are no valleys on either side, but floodplain as you can see is nearly continuous here, and the river has no lateral constraints on its mobility, so it can spread in its width the way it wants, unlike the confined, which can only flow in the straight path. So the confined channels are divided into 2 broad morphological categories. For single thread, sinuosity is not meaningful as it is determined by the valley rather than the channel form. These channels are not further classified at this stage because it's not possible to make accurate distinctions based on other characteristics like bed configuration, etc., even with the remotely sensed sources. 4 distinctive type of confined channels are then discriminated. It could be single thread, straight sinuous, wandering, braided, and anabranching. All this we have already seen in the older classification. The single thread is what, or the straight sinuous channel is what develops much later when it is almost falling in the ocean. Then you have wandering and braided and anabranching. So these are the four channel morphologies of confined channels. You can see this is the single thread, this is confined wandering, and this is confined braided, and this is confined inner branching. It has multiple branches. And then the unconfined channels are classified based on their planimetric characteristic using at least three indices. First is the sinuosity index, the braiding index, and the inner branching index. Sinuosity index is defined here, braiding index is also defined here, and inner branching index is also defined here. Using all these three parameters, the unconfined channels are further divided into single thread channels, which include straight, sinuous, and meandering, transitional channels, which are wandering, and the multi-braid thread channels, which are braided and inner branching. So there are 6 basic types of unconfined channels. So these are all the 6 types. First is straight, then you have sinus, you have meandering, you have wandering, you have braided, and you have inner branching. So please, when you are writing the answer related to this, always update and quote the latest classification given this. They have divided it based on whether it is confined or unconfined. Then we are coming to the approaches to studies of river morphology. See, as you all know, India has a very long geological and tectonic history. So the land is thus have large time scales and diversity in terms of topographical and spatial scales. So there is also a great variety of the stream flows, and thereby a great variety of channel patterns. So channel morphology is very important, as you will see later what all can be gained by studying the channels. Then, so the unpredictable character of seasons, the vagaries of monsoon keep altering the channel characteristics. So the studies on river behavior attain considerable significance as far as India is concerned, and a lot of studies have been done on channel morphology by various scientists and later on by the geographers. So there are a lot of important tools used to study channel morphology, just not field observation as was being done earlier by hydrogeologists and engineers. Now the geographers have taken over this and now trying to understand how the monsoon influenced rivers create these channel morphologies, and through satellite technology and remote sensing they are able to join both the studies on the field as well as on the satellite imagery, and then deduce very important outcomes of how the channel morphologies have been developed due to the vagaries of monsoon and changing river morphologies. So the importance of study of channel morphology is, first, an understanding of channel morphology and behavior provides a scientific approach in the consideration of design and planning of water management projects. Second, it also provides solutions to various problems that may arise in terms of hazards, particularly related to floods. You see how the Ganges or the other rivers, and the Bihar, Kosi, etc., how because of the river meandering, how they cause floods and how we can actually adhere to and see how we can tackle these floods. So the river morphology is very important. Then many times the problems in river morphology can be intertwined such that one can influence the other. So if you understand one particular river morphology, you can easily predict how the other river is based on the bedrock studies, remote sensing data, etc. Then the problems in river morphology, and the National Institute of Hydrology scientists and geographers got together and tried to identify problems related to river morphology. They can be man-made, anthropogenic, or can be man-made, anthropogenic, or it could also be natural. So the natural problems include, example, the effects of rainfall and river flows. It changes in river course that can sometimes be frequent and forming new channels, one into the other. Then it's river capturing, and could also lead to the river current towards the banks changing and meandering patterns of rivers. All these cause eventually the overflowing of banks and flooding. So this and it could also be erratic deposition in the deltaic areas. The man-made problems in river morphology can include downstream degradation of morphological features of a river due to construction of barrage, or could be dam. There's a lot of arguments going on in the government whether you should have a dam or not. Then effects on the upstream river, which due to the construction of a barrage or dam can affect the river flow regimes due to flood embankments and can alter and change the river morphology, which also affects due to activities undertaken by farmers throughout the river reach, in effects in constructing bathing guards, the effects of heavy urbanization, etc. A good paper by Sarkar in 2016, which enumerates the various problems faced by the faced on the river morphologies in various river types. Lastly, the case study of Brahmaputra River, the satellite, remote sensing satellite RS-1A was studied on the channel configuration of the river. The assessment was able to provide updated information in terms of both precise temporal and large spatial scales that substitute to a cumbersome process in the field in taking the measurements, etc. This is a very interesting study, and please go through it, and always emphasize that the use of technology in contemporary times is becoming more and more widespread. Although field studies are required for particular site specific, they need to be supplemented with the use of technology, particularly the satellite imagery. The idea is to bring out more precise information on large scale, spatial scales that can streamline developmental process and provide better response in tracking rivers and in particularly mitigating disasters such as floods. So that's all, guys. I try to keep it as concise and to the point, purely from the examination point of view, so that you can easily grasp with this particular presentation. Content is much more than enough for you for the exam. If you try to retain all the points, this is the outline of the presentation. So guys, we'll now move on to the other topics more quickly. These 4-5 topics are very important in the sense that it can consume a lot of time in understanding, grasping, and trying to retain, and sometimes you do not have the time after the prelims is over. So I'm making sure that you cover all the difficult topics at least much before you take the prelims, that is by the end of March. So thanks a lot for all the encouragement I have got for the topics I covered on dendrination chronology and the slope development. That gives me a lot of encouragement to pick up the other difficult topics and bring it to you, so that you are benefited, and you, as far as geography optional is concerned, before you actually take the prelims, you are totally confident of having covered all the topics, and you are hands-on with each of these topics. Okay guys, and thanks a lot, and bye. See you all soon.